I don't need to pound the gavel. We'll just, I bring this meeting to order. If we would please stand for the invocation by Councilmember Viele.
Council President, I'll be our pledge here. I'll pray our pledge. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You've all had a copy sent to you of the April 2020 financials and had a chance to look them over. Is any concerns or questions in reference to those?
Yeah, I had a question. I don't know who can answer this. Under sewer rents, it shows a year-to-date change of 309.20%.
Is this under the water fund, sewer?
Yeah, sewer funds, it's under sewer fund, actually.
Sewer rents, the very first top line under sewer fund rents, and it changed by 309%.
Yeah, it shows a collection last year of $77,942 and a collection this year of $318,940.97. So part of that may have to do with the timing of the collections, but that amount, that actual amount goes up as the money comes in and it's recorded into the system. It's possible it was recorded earlier than it was last year or a different year, but that would be the reason for it. That number reflects what has been collected and recorded as collected by the Finance Office.
Yeah, I was just curious what the trend is, why, if it had anything to do with the COVID-19 or
Don't know.
billing or people staying home saying, gee, I'll pay my bills.
Don't know.
I don't know.
It's going to be an interesting year for a lot of our expenses and revenues.
Okay, thank you.
So, anyone else have any other questions in reference to the April 2020 financials? So we're all in consensus to approve those?
Yes.
Okay. You've also received a copy of the the May 2020 minutes. Any questions or concerns or errors that you found in there? Okay, so are we in consensus to approve the May 2020 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. We have a few agenda items here, we'll assign those now. Item 41, 2020, the fund balance policy. Who would like that one? Mr. Viele. Number 42, 2020, the resolution with the DOT for Department of Health, for the lead service lines. Ms. Briggs. 43, 2020, the GHD engineering agreement. Mr. Canale. And number 44, 2020, the Lavella Associates agreement for the Jackson Square project. Mr. Petey. Communications?
Yes, the first is the liquor license application of Pizza 151 of Batavia. There were no objections from the police department for that to move forward.
Any questions or concerns on that? Okay.
I had also received an email letter from John Roach. He said obviously he can't attend in person. He'd like to have it read similar to a public comment, so I don't know if we're reading out of that. He says, I like the idea of adding to the unassigned reserve fund from about 10% to 15 to 20% to give a fiscal buffer in case of another unforeseen fiscal shock. I would like to know where the extra money will come from. Added tax, reduced spending on programs or services, or reduced funds to restrict restricted reserve funds. If you were to borrow from restricted funds and it has to be repaid within 5 years with interest, which is really a penalty for using the fund, how will that be done? Can you assure us that if the water and/or sewer funds are borrowed from, the repayment will not come from just property taxes, where tax-exempt properties do not have to pay, but by all the users of both, so all tax-exempt properties that use both water and sewer help pay? Thank you.
You want to answer anything?
Yeah, what he did is he touched on, I think, 3 or 4 at least different questions in relationship to finance and revenues and expenses. We have heard from the state on the passage of legislation that allows municipalities to be able to, on a temporary basis, we call it utilize what they call the restricted reserve funds with a payback promise on those if that's something a number of municipalities around the state are saying they need to try to use that tool. And so that's passed. We have not received word yet that I'm aware that the governor has signed that legislation. Once legislation is signed, then certainly we will be going over it and making sure we're going over it with legal counsel, knowing what we can and can't do and do and don't do. And at the same time, we are looking at our different funds to see what's feasible and not feasible. So our short answer to you is that a financial plan will be coming back to City Council in relationship to both the legislation and in relationship to where we're going to be going as a continuation of the fiscal year. We are going to be receiving some additional numbers. I did speak with the county. Since that was brought up, I was going to bring it up in my manager's remarks, but I'll bring it here. The last payment, which was the first payment in June, received over at the county for sales and use tax, was down approximately 36%. We are not terribly surprised with that because that was right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are starting to see some uptick in commercial activity around the city. So it will be very interesting to see where some of these things come. It fell in line with a number of other cities. Others had less, others had more. So as far as where we're at on the city's ability to pay bills, we're fine. We have the money in the bank to be able to cover that, and in fact, we are still able to be doing some investing, appropriate and conservative investing with the banks. And so at this point in time, we're okay. But as far as what he's asking on the specifics, I can't give you a specific answer until we sit down and go over it and build a plan for you. So.
And I think one of the things he said was in reference to if they had to pay it back with interest, there would be a penalty. But we're paying our own money back with interest, so we're actually helping the fund with that extra money from ourselves anyway. So it's not like we're stealing it from another fund to pay it back and losing interest somewhere else. It almost is trying to encourage you not to do that. And there is a slight
There is.
barrier there to prevent you from just jumping into it every time you want to.
Right.
And pulling the money out, you realize there's going to be a little bit of a hassle about it, and it keeps you from just tapping into it, I think. But again, like you said, nobody knows because the governor hasn't signed it yet, and we haven't really seen how that's going to work, right?
Really, wouldn't that only be appropriate if you borrowed the money? I mean, to take money from Fund A and pay it to Fund B with interest when it's all our money anyway.
Well, that's what they're saying is because it's restricted fund balance, you're not supposed to be able to take it out at all, and they're going to let you take it out, but they're going to let you take it out with penalty to your own self, and it prevents you from taking from the building fund and never putting it back. And if you do, you're going to have to put a little extra back. So, again, we don't know. We're going to have to see how that works out.
Penalty could go to the state.
Yeah, right now it's speculation until the bill is signed, but we do know that, there are implications on both sides, so we have to be careful and cautious on how we make recommendations and make sure that they're sound and fit within the city's fiscal policy.
Okay. Anything else? All right, the next city council conference meeting will be held on Monday, June 22nd, 7 p.m. City Hall, Council Boardroom, second floor. Not sure if that'll be open to the public yet. As soon as we know, we'll announce that. Also, I have a couple other things to report in reference to yesterday. There's been some confusion online, and I just want to address this publicly. The city council president position is a ceremonial head of council position. It really has no authority over any fellow council members, okay? It's in the charter, you can look it up in the Batavia City Charter. All that allows me to do is run the meetings, like I'm doing now, and sign documents that council authorizes me to sign. And I know sometimes when people are looking for someone to contact, they see the council president and they contact me. Please do, I'm a council member like everyone else, and I will gladly listen to your concerns. And if I can't help those concerns, I will pass them on to the appropriate ward person or whatever. Just to clear that up a little bit, because there's been some kind of misconception on that. So when I show up in public, I'm a council member, just being there for my fellow neighbors and friends, and I'm not necessarily representing all of council when I'm there. Okay, so just so you know that. Now, having said that, there was a march the other day that everybody saw, and it was on the news media and whatnot, and I was invited to attend because I ended up calling the organizers in reference to another matter, and we happened to become kind of acquaintances, and they asked me to attend. So when I mentioned to a couple council members that I was going to be going, and I sent the email out, I did get some feedback that said, let us know what happens and keep us posted. So what I learned down there, and some of you have seen the videos, and so I'm not really trying to repeat myself, but I promised I would bring this to you and let you know. The police, they want more community involvement with our police officers. They want more police accountability, maybe a higher authority from the state, some independent counsel that would come in on police misconduct. And that's kind of above our pay grade, but it's something they're looking for, so we can kind of look into that. They want fair treatment in the community, which is fine. They feel uncomfortable in the community and businesses, and I'm not sure how we would address that, but some of the members of the march felt like they feel like they're looked at differently when they go into a business, and they're treated like a drug dealer or a criminal because maybe someone of color at one point was a drug dealer or a criminal, just like maybe someone not of color was. And they feel like they get followed around, and that makes them uncomfortable. So that's something we have to talk about. That's something we could engage in the community with. They just want to be treated fairly and equal. Some of the comments I heard were they would like to see more people of color in local jobs, like in the police department, in the fire department, and in the school system. Those are all governed by civil service, and there's a test and there's so on. So we can maybe get that information out and encourage people to participate. And one of the things that I really took home with it from that event yesterday is that everybody there that was in a real positive mood. They had some upset and there was some passion there. But there's really a genuine love of the community there. And they were shocked, at least that's what they told me, that they were shocked that people thought that they might hurt their community because they love it. And they would defend it like anyone else who lived here. This is their home, and they like it here, and it's safe here. And they want to protect the community like anyone else who lives here that wants to protect their home. So they just wanted that to be known. And there's several other things that you could see on the videos, and I encourage you to watch them because there was some passionate speakers, and there was some things that they mentioned that were legitimate concerns, I think. So I just wanted to bring that to council. They're trying to contact us, but unfortunately, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Our email server has been down for at least 2 to 3 days. So if we don't get back to you, it's not because we're ignoring anyone. It's we're not receiving the emails, and we're working off secondary emails that were made for an emergency, and where some of us are working off our personal emails, and that's not proper. We need to stay on city business and city emails so it can be documented, and for any requests for information later on, it's there. We can pull it out. So it's going to take a couple days for that to be fixed. It's several hours to rebuild everyone's sign-in name and stuff, and it's a very awkward thing to do. So, and Marty's going to cover that in his city manager's report a little more detailed. But we're not ignoring anyone. We will definitely return calls and get back. It's just that the email server is down, and it's kind of hurting us right now for communication. So at some point down the line, I would encourage council members to engage with the community like we always do anyway. I mean, that's, I guess some of the people there told me they felt uncomfortable bothering us and contacting us. So I've assured them that we're all very willing and able to answer the calls, and I know we all do. There's a misunderstanding there. We will gladly answer your phone calls. We will gladly return your emails and so on in a timely fashion, and we want to help. And every ward person, every ward member is responsible for their ward, and we have 3 at-larges that will assist.
Yeah, I
Go.
just wanted to say, I had people calling me when they thought it was going to be at Williams Park, and people know they call me, I answer their phone call right away, and I talk to Marty to see, okay, what can I tell these people about what's going on there and so forth, and I keep them informed, but, oh yeah,
Right.
people call.
In my 6 years on council, I don't think I've ever seen a council member fail to get back to somebody in a timely fashion. So, please, if you feel you need to contact us, this is why we're here. We love to help, and I know I love to help, and I'm sure my fellow council members feel the same way. I can't speak for them, but I will tell you, I will gladly call you back, and I'm sure they will as well. So, we'll get through this, and we'll figure it out, and we'll do everything we can to point people in the right direction for additional assistance, and anything we can do locally, we will help. Okay, anyone else? I mean, I didn't mean to take too much time on that, but I just wanted to clear up a few things that I've seen online. They're saying they can't hear us.
Yes, there's a few that are saying that, but I have it up, the volume's up at the highest, so.
Okay, and if you can't hear me, fret not, because it will be republished and posted at a later date and time, and it will be on the video news Facebook page and the city's. It'll be on tonight after this meeting. So if you can't hear me, don't panic. We do have other microphones in place, and we will get to make sure you're able to hear everything that happens at the meeting will be played at a later date and time, probably within an hour or two after the meeting. Okay, thank you. Sorry, thank you for letting us know that.
They said it's okay now.
Because you're closer, I think, to us.
Okay.
You were back farther. All right. It's okay. We're doing the best we can, trying to do a hybrid meeting here. All right, city attorney's report. Let her get nice and close to you so they can hear you, because I can hardly hear you from here.
Nice to see everyone again in the same room.
I know.
We have continued to work on a variety of city projects across the spectrum, general matters, specific matters, a variety of matters, contracts, code enforcement, real estate, and so forth. At this point, there's nothing specific to report on. We have also supported the city manager's office and the various staff with COVID-related issues that you know about, so hopefully we're winding down on that.
Okay. Any questions for the city attorney? Okay. City manager's report.
Yes, a couple of things. First, since George mentioned COVID, I'll start with that. Had a good conversation this morning with the representative from FEMA. We are setting up a meeting with them and our department heads to go over the expenses that we have and make sure it's clear and that the city is clearly taking advantage of every expense that it can ask for reimbursement for. They said they've been working with he's been working with other municipalities, and they look forward. I believe the gentleman said he was stationed out of Auburn, but they can't, under the federal rules, come and see us in person, so they're going to do that Zoom thing or that phone thing, what that means is we're properly registered in the system. They're going to be working with us to make sure they put together the project sheets, and the project sheets deal with the different pieces of the expenses that are part of COVID-19. And our office has been keeping those expenses, and we will, keeping copies of the documentation, we will be putting those together. It is unique. In speaking with the representative from FEMA, this is clearly different than anything they've dealt with, at least in this generation, in relationship just to the length of time. And they encouraged us from the federal side to look out at least another couple of months of potential for some of those COVID expenses to be coming down. So I thought that was good news. The other piece that I think that's important here is it was very unique to be able to see the operation from the other side and watch how ours and other fire and rescue personnel, and how our law enforcement and other law enforcement, and how our public works all came together seamlessly when it came time to actually implement this plan. It was clear that it was well thought out, it was well designed, so our thanks goes out to both our state and federal partners and our county partners They did a lot of work, a lot of hard work. There were a number of moving parts going on throughout the city during this event, and each one of them came off, as far as we could tell, pretty seamlessly without a lot of problem. And they were very professional. They handled themselves with dignity. I'm talking about our police officers and also the others from several communities and from the different agencies at the state and federal level. They all conducted themselves extremely well, I thought. It was very good to see us not have to bring some of the resources to bear that were ready to come into play if they needed to. That was very much a relief. But it was also a relief to know that they were there. They were well coached. They were well trained. So our thanks, obviously, from the city manager's office to everyone from the people who participated to the people who were there to protect and to serve, did conduct themselves appropriately, I thought. And in watching it, and I got to watch it from many different angles, and it was very good and refreshing to see, and it was good to see the aftermath, which might have been a concern, but again, our law enforcement was well prepared and ready for it. So things that could have been challenging or serious weren't. And for that, we're thankful. Now, we do have related to that, we do have another issue, and it started around Friday afternoon with the emails to the city. Some of the emails started dropping down, and then by Saturday, it was clear that the email system was crashed. It was tied to something called a Microsoft Exchange server. And that's a server that deals specifically with the city's emails. And they found a number of places that weren't corrupt, and then they found a number of places in files that were corrupt. And so some people have been able to get their, what they call, their folders, where they store their emails to organize them, restored. Some have not. And they're working on them. They're working on them batches at a time to get them all up and running. What they've actually ended up doing, frankly, is setting up an alternative, they're calling an alternative temporary email server site, because I'm trying to keep this in English speak and away from the IT techno speak, but the basic short answer on it is they're still working on it. We don't have 100% on the cause. The one thing what we do know is what I've reported to you is that they have found several files that had showed up over the weekend as corrupted, and when those files show up as corrupted, they have to be able to figure out a way, can we recover them, can we not, are they safe to recover or not? So they're literally sifting through millions upon millions of emails and making sure that everything is done appropriately. The couple of the nice things I did want to report to you is that we fortunately have redundancy communications and redundancy and an ability to be able to see what's going on and make sure the fact that we moved quickly to make sure we have backup communications, whether it was by phone or backup personal email accounts or temporary accounts. So again, the staff did respond to it quickly. This is something that you don't ever want to have happen, let alone during the middle of a COVID-19 and a protest on the same weekend. But it did, and again, the staff is acting in a professional manner and working together with our consultants to get things solved. As soon as they're solved, we'll let everybody know. In the meantime, if you're local, call 345-6300. I believe I got that right. 585-345-6300, and that is the city's main telephone line. If you don't reach someone, leave a message. We have people assigned to get those messages to the right people. Also, we do have a contact form page, and I understand that our website is still up.
Yes.
So go to the contact form there, and you can also try to provide information or get input in. It takes a little bit more time, but at least we have alternate means for people to communicate. So any council members, if you have anyone who has to try to get a hold of us, if they can do one of those two things, they're more than welcome they're more than welcome to call the city manager's office as well, and we will try to make sure we get back to them as quickly as we can. I'll give you a brief example. We had, I don't remember how many, last Friday. It may have been as many of 15, 20 or more calls that were stacked up and waiting, and Lisa Casey, our confidential secretary, and I worked through those. I think we got most, if not all of those answered, and if there's anyone that still hasn't gotten an answer that they're looking for, please let us know, and we'll make sure it's followed up on.
What about the audit committee council selection discussion?
The audit committee, we have talked to the people, and we need a couple of council members to sit on that again this year. We are still on track with the audit as far as timing, so we're looking at late July or August to come back and for the audit committee to meet.
Yes,
How many
please.
more people do you need besides Bob?
I need a total of 2 from council.
Is anyone who does like to do it?
I'll do it now.
Paul? Does anyone mind? I else mind. Paul, do it if you're available.
You want to do it?
Well, why don't you let Paul do it, and if he can't make it, he can contact you?
an alternate for
I did it 2 years in a row. Go ahead, you can do it.
You sure?
Yeah, go ahead, it's interesting.
Okay, so it'll be Jeremy, and then Paul will be the
Yeah,
alternate.
if something
case.
happens. and
If you
wanna-
can't make it, just get a hold of Paul. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a good possibility, once you come in real close, okay? Real close, because they can't hear us still. I just want to say this. If you can't hear us, we will replay this within an hour of this meeting, and you'll be able to hear everything on the regular video screen. So I apologize for the confusion, but the sound will be better on the second replay. Thank you. All right. Thank you. I need to say that because I'm getting texts here saying we can't hear you still. John, did you want to say something?
Going back to the email issue, Marty, is this a security concern as well, or is this just a technical fail on the system's part?
We don't know yet. We are still in what they call, they're still in the identifying, they're still trying to identify the root causes, and they're trying to track them down, and they want to be factual. So the answer is, I don't know that answer yet. The only thing I do know is that a number of email files were corrupted. And one thing I didn't add in my report, say in my report that I will add, is that those individuals were notified that their emails were quarantined. The city manager's email was one of those. Police chief's email was one of those. And there were several others ultimately throughout the city that ended up being quarantined. What they did, out of an abundance of caution, obviously, they had to bring that server down. They had to. Otherwise, the corruption potential, they were concerned, I'm sure, about the corruption spreading. So at least they identified it and stopped it before it hit every single email in the city. Thank goodness for that.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, committee reports.
I'm ready.
Oh, you got it?
I'm always ready.
Okay, I knew you were going to be the first one.
Did everyone get some kind of information on the food trucks?
Yes.
Oh, all right. That's what I was going to tell you about, but you all did get...
We received the information that Bob sent us, but we
Okay.
didn't get any information on what bid had talked about or
That
anything.
went out.
Yeah.
Should have been in your page.
Yeah, it should have been.
Today, yeah.
Yes.
All right, I didn't
Oh,
see
it's
it.
in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
from bid.
It went out by email today.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Oh,
If it went out by email, I didn't get the bid thing, but you can tell us, and I'll read it. I'll read it when it comes in, right?
basically, what
I've got a hard copy.
I said is that we obviously want to invite people to be downtown. We obviously want to have that kind of a familiar thing going, but they want us to be assured as council that there are routes to go through to do this. You know, you don't just pop your truck in front of Eli Fish and decide to start a new business. So they wanted us to be aware of what's going on is the main gist of it, to keep an eye on it and be assured that they will watch it as well, so that we're welcoming food trucks, but there is a system in which
How do they, what's the system? Do they contact us?
they do contact us.
So you contact the city clerk's office.
Yes,
And
they
then
do.
from the city clerk's office, they'll give them the instructions on how to get the food truck and what will work.
Yes. And in general, the first rule is obviously not going to be to park yourself in one of our restaurants in the front of it, so,
Right.
yeah.
If I can interject.
Please do.
Casino, Council President, I did speak with Mr. Brown today. I
Mm-hmm.
get clarification that might be of some assistance, but he said we would ask that the city, when creating any, strive to balance transit business, blah, blah, blah. but including food trucks should be limited to special events or by invitation. So I said, well, who's going to invite them? And he said, well, bid or a bid member. And I said, see, that's going to get pretty complicated. And I think the feeling I got was, John was very explicit. He said his position is he has to defend, just worry about bid and bid members, okay? But like one of the members has a food truck, Center Street.
Well, yes, they do. Center Street has
So
one.
you can't tell them you can't have your food truck in your car.
Yeah.
So it's a little complex, and he did say he did call places in other states as far as Texas to see how they handle it. And, it's just a double-edged sword, so I think it's going to take a fair amount of work to resolve this.
It's a work in progress. I did notice the other day that there was one out by the, what do you call that? A place where you go and wash your clothes. It's got a
The
good...
laundromat?
Yeah, there was one out by the laundromat. Obviously, the laundromat is not going to be upset about someone selling hamburgers in front of it. And I think it will take a while to figure out how they want to do this, because part of the group feels the way Bob does, and I'm not sure that they all feel that way.
So basically, it's a work in progress.
It's a work in
The conversation
progress.
has started, and we can
Yes.
now work with them to
Yes.
figure out a nice
Yes.
final policy on how they want it.
They're aware of it, and they want to work together, is the
One
bottom
of the
line.
things I suggested to Mr. Brown was that in the future, though, and advise bid members, I know he can't control it, but if they have a situation they want to discuss, do it as a group.
Yes.
Through their board and send it to us. Don't send the council president an email that somebody said this.
Yeah,
Because then it just leads to confusion.
Yeah, good.
Is there a one-time vendor's license or something with that, or how's that work? Or permit?
There is a type of permit called a transient permit. So we do have a type of process in there, but to do what they're talking about here is going to take, because part of the problem and issue is related to DOT, Department of Transportation right-of-way also. I mean, you have that issue as well. Plus, you have some private lots, you have some lots that are city lots. And again, you're correct, when we're dealing with city lots or someone wanting to come and do a transient type of event, particularly if it's on city property, that can be a challenge or a concern for us to walk through the permitting, and we need to walk through those permitting processes. But there are also private property matters, and there are also easement matters, so there's a whole stack and multitude of matters. If we could use that as the tool to help control, that would be great. But I'll just be frank, from a policy standpoint, this is fairly complicated, so.
It is. It's not only complicated to us, but it's very complicated to the truck owners, because there are some cities where they're just allowed to go and do what they want. And there are other cities where they're not allowed to do anything at all. So we have to come up with something in the middle where we can, the idea of inviting them, I admit, I'm on that board, and I thought that was a little bizarre, but.
That's right, who would decide who invites?
I don't know, and how would I know who to invite? I understand.
Rochester are very restricted, they spell it out.
Yes.
It's simple, you can't park within so many feet of different events. You can't park in their business district except if there's an invitation for like a big event going on.
And I do, when there's a group thing going on, like Summer in the City, something like that, it's fine to have some extras, but they can't just come constantly and just be here every day. There are a couple of vendors right here in town who just do sandwiches for lunch, and they certainly should have some kind of leeway to do something, or it's useless for them to own a truck.
Right.
I think there's probably almost all the trucks are local people. I know it's going to keep our esteemed attorney quite busy figuring this out.
Very busy. You can consider that a new project.
I'll wait for the instruction.
Okay, so any other committee reports?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to say that, unfortunately, we canceled the parade. I had people calling me just a few days before the parade to see if there was anything we could do, and I said that absolutely not. There's nothing we can do, and, it's pretty sad, to be perfectly honest. And I know a lot of people at the VA were disappointed, and the VA is still under basically a lockdown. They're not hard. Nobody can really get in there, family, friends, everything. There's a lot of lonely people out there, and some of our past grand marshals have passed away in the last couple of years. It seems like grand marshal might be your final act. So I can only ask anyone, if you see a veteran, thank them, especially our World War II guys. They don't have much time left, unfortunately. So it was sad. I had a couple people say that they were going to drive down Main Street anyway. I said, you better be careful. You know, people are touchy, and God knows. Thank you.
Well, it's unfortunate, but it seems like this whole year, when you look back several years from now, and you say, remember the summer of 2020? And everyone's going to go, no, we didn't do anything. Everything was canceled. So unfortunately, that's the reality of it. Everything's canceled, at least till September that I know of. So it's been the year that really didn't happen yet. It's kind of depressing, but we'll get through it. We're a tough community, we'll get through it. Any other committee reports? Okay, what about unfinished business? Any things I don't think we have anything left over from before. Okay, so new business. Resolution 41-2020, Mr. Viele.
Thank you, Council President. I move a resolution authorizing the adoption of a fund balance policy for the city of Batavia, New York.
Seconded by Mr. McGinnis. Now, we talked about this we already talked about a lot of this at the conference meeting. We have department heads on standby if you have any questions. So, anyone have any questions in reference to the fund balance policy?
Mr. Chairman, how much is in that fund balance? We don't have a figure.
Yeah, this is related to a percentage, not a figure. What this is doing is it's setting basically the sidebars of where you can go and where you can't go as far as how much money you leave sitting out there that is not assigned to the budget, basically, and is not assigned to restricted funds or reserves. There's always a certain amount of money that needs to be there in case revenue dries up. And one of the things that took COVID-19 and what it did to the economy has taught us is that the 10 to 11% that has been talked about for so long, that's a good amount. Well, it is a good amount, but an event like COVID-19 that hammered the economy the way it did is not sufficient. We're not sufficient to be able to handle that kind of a hit. So the way it works on percentages, let's say, for example, let's just pick a number, $10 million. If you had a $10 million general fund operating budget, and let's say you said you were going to do $15 million, 15%. So you take 15% of that 10 million, that leaves you with $1.5 million. So you're sitting there and saying, okay, I've got enough to cover 15% of that total, what those total budget operating costs are going to be. So every year when your budget amount changes, your operating budget amount changes, your percentage is, the goal is your percentage is going to be reflecting what you need to cover your worst case event. And previously the feeling obviously was, well, 10% can do that. Well, clearly it can't. And so 15 to 25, we wanted two things. We wanted to set ourselves a higher floor, and we also wanted to set ourselves a ceiling or a goal to shoot for, to send a signal not only to us, but to the state comptroller's office, to the citizens, and to our auditors that this is where we are looking at going. We have spoken with our auditing firm. They feel fine with the goal that we've set for this. So that's basically how it works.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is because in 2012, we removed the ambulance from the city of Batavia, okay? And we put that money in a reserve fund. I was quite sure. Kathy, do you recall that?
Yeah, I think that if it were reserve fund, it was probably a restricted fund then.
Okay, so it's not coming from a restricted
Right.
fund.
This is money that's not tied to any restricted fund. It's not tied to any assigned funds for whether it's general or water or sewer assigned funds. This is money that comes in. Let's say, for example, we have a banner year with sales and use tax revenue. If we receive money over and above what we need to do to pay our bills in the budget, a chunk of that money is now unassigned fund balance because it was never assigned to a budget. And I've got Heidi here to watch me in case I get this wrong. But that's the basic way it works, is we have revenues and we have expenses. And we come to you and say, well, we think, based on the best financial minds we have in this part of New York, that this is where it's going to go. And this is what we're going to do. And consulting with the county treasurer's office and different things, this is what we think we're going to be able to afford to spend. And this is how much money we think we're going to bring in. So if you bring in money that's extra, or if you get another source of revenue, like for example, say the governor's office in the middle of the budget year all of a sudden decides to be generous and say a certain amount of aid money is going to be coming to you locally, and it's not, and to help offset some of your expenses, and that helps you, put you in a position that you have more, that helps some of your other revenue to be able to be there and not have to be used, then you've got some money that is unused at the end of the year and is eligible to become unassigned. And there are a number of steps involved, but basically it's money that's unassigned, it's not assigned to the budget.
Savings account. Think of it like a savings
Yeah,
account.
similar to a savings.
Well, could you find out where that money is from the ambulance?
Certainly.
And, I'd like to know that.
Sure.
Another thing over here that bothers me is the Dwyer Stadium. And that is item 6, I'm sorry, GML 6P.
On the financial report?
Yes.
Oh, she's talking about in the reserves.
The reserves. We gave Dwyer Stadium 50,000, okay? And I recall Mr. McGinnis was very upset with it, and he didn't want to fund that. We were not supposed to give them another amount of 25,000 that we give every year.
I don't believe we did.
They asked for the money additionally for 1 year, and they were going to
Yes.
skip the second year they were supposed to get it.
Correct.
So they basically upped the schedule, in other words. We didn't give them any additional money. We gave them money that was promised over a period of years, as I recall, and then we just gave them some money earlier, and they weren't going to get the money the following year. Or it was along that kind of lines, I think.
So why
I
is
mean, it
this?
was like, when did we talk about that? It was
Right,
like-
and we didn't add any new money to the reserve.
That was a while, that was like several months ago, so I'm kind of
Right,
rusty on it, I'm
right.
sorry.
And,
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Now, if there's no baseball, why are we going to have this down here? I mean,
Council President, if I might.
Go ahead.
please.
Councilperson Christian, this goes to the point that we talked about at the last meeting, which is the nature of the restriction of reserves funds under Article 6 of the GML. Once those funds are placed into those various reserves, in that case a repair reserve for a specific facility, they're very restricted. They have to be used for a restricted purpose consistent with what that fund was created for. So unless this legislation that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting is signed by the governor and provides some flexibility and latitude for municipalities to use reserve funds in connection with COVID circumstances, all those other restrictions are still going to apply with respect to previously created reserve funds. That's the nature of the reserve funds under Article 6 of the GML. And the restrictions and the authorized uses depend upon the nature of the specific reserve, okay? So that's why those funds might be in that particular facility reserve or repair reserve, but you can't just use it from one purpose for another. It's restricted. The council acts as a trustee for those funds, and use of those funds inconsistent with the specific purpose for which the reserve was created would cause potential issues on behalf of the municipality. Okay?
But we have a motion on the floor, we have a resolution on the floor. If you want to talk about, yeah, you can send Marty an email and ask those questions, and then send it out to all of council, so we all know the answer. That's kind of the policy. Because we have to vote on this fund balance thing, and we're talking about Dwyer Stadium now, so I want to just keep us on task. That's all. No, I get it. I get it, but I mean, that's kind of off the path of the fund balance policy is what we're talking about right now. So, anybody else have any other questions on the fund balance policy? Okay, so call the roll, please.
Councilmember Viele?
Yes.
Casino?
Yes.
Canali?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Karas?
Yes.
Bykowski?
Yes.
Jankowski?
Yes. Resolution 42, 2020, Ms. Briggs.
Thank you, Council President. I move resolution authorize an agreement with New York State Department of Health for the replacement of lead service lines.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bayakowski, seconds. Any questions or concerns? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Karas?
Yes.
Bayakowski?
Yes.
Jankowski?
Yes.
Viele?
Yes.
Pacino?
Yes.
Canali?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Okay. Resolution 43, 2020, Mr. Canali, please.
Thank you, Council President. I move a resolution to enter into an agreement with GHD for engineering services for the DOH replacement of lead service lines project, which is part of the New York State Clean Water Infrastructure Act of 2017.
Seconded by Mr. McGinnis. Any questions or concerns? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Canali?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Karas?
Yes.
Bayakowski?
Yes.
Jankowski?
Yes.
Viele?
Yes.
Pacino?
Yes.
Resolution 44-2020, Ms. Pacino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a resolution to enter into an agreement with Labella Associates PC for administrative engineering services for the DRI Jackson Square project.
Seconded by Ms. Briggs. Any questions or concerns? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pacino?
Yes.
Canali?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Karas?
Yes.
Bayakowski?
Yes.
Jankowski?
Yes.
Viele?
Yes.
Okay. Take us into executive session, please.
Whereas Article 7, Section 105(1)F of the Public Officers Law permits the legislative body of a municipality to enter into executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Now therefore let it be resolved by the council of the city of Batavia that upon approval of this motion, the city council does hereby enter into executive session.
Seconded by Mr. Healy. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pacino?
Yes.
Canali?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Karas?
Yes.
Bayakowski?
Yes.
Jankowski?
Yes.
Viele?
Yes.
We're now in executive session. So the plan is we're going to stay right here, and then we'll ask everyone to leave the room, except council members.